And I feel like the challenge that we issue to people, if you want to grow something that matters, if you want to build something that matters, Michigan is going to continue to be the place where you make the things that matter going forward. And if you are about that life, this is where you need to be. Like, that's the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think people will continue to respond to that.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Bamboo. Yes, I am sitting in the podcast room at the Bamboo Detroit location right now, which is where you have seen a ton of the Black Fridays podcast episodes. And the reason that is because Bamboo has been Black Friday's creative hub for the last couple of years. However, it's much more than our creative HQ. It's home to hundreds of entrepreneurs, creators, thinkers, and doers just like yourself. Now, whether you need a private suite that's customized to your liking so that you can effectively get work done, or if you need a space to be able to host a meeting or a conference call, Bamboo has flexible, creative spaces and a supportive community to match. Now, if you don't get anything from this message, I need you to do this right here. Go ahead, click the link to check out Bamboo's selection of private suites at any of their locations. That's right, any of their Bamboo co-work locations. And you can also find a link in the show notes as well to get those details. And it's time for you, yeah, that's right, you, to join the Bamboo community. That's it. Time to get into the show. What up, though, Black Fridays family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Before we get into today's episode, I need you to hit that like button, subscribe button, drop a comment, and then go ahead and share some episodes with some family, friends, and loved ones so we can keep this thing going. Now that I got that out of the way, I got somebody who is serving to make the state of Michigan a better place each and every day. None other than the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan, Mr. Garlin Gilchrist. How you doing today, my brother?
What up, though, man? I'm good to be here with you.
What up, though? Happy to have you on the platform.
For sure.
So I got to ask you, for the folks that coming from a small place of ignorance, myself and then other people maybe watching or listening to this, could you explain to us what a lieutenant governor is and what those duties of lieutenant governor might look like?
This is a great first question, man, because I have no expectation that people know what a lieutenant governor is. But the easiest way to explain it is just like the United States has a president and then has a vice president who serves alongside them, who is their number two, who serves as president if they are incapacitated. The lieutenant governor is like the vice president of the state of Michigan. And so I'm the number two. Whenever the governor of Michigan is outside of the state of Michigan, I serve as the acting governor of Michigan. I also am the first in line of succession should, heaven forbid, something happen to the governor, then I would become the governor of Michigan. The other responsibility I have is I'm the only member of the Michigan government who serves in both the executive and the legislative branch because I'm the president of the Michigan Senate. What that means is I literally preside over the session. I swing a gavel. I get to tell people when they can talk and when they can't. And most decisively, there are 38 state senators. And if there's a vote and in the state Senate that gets tied 19 one way, 19 the other way, I cast a tie-breaking vote.
Okay.
When I got elected, one of my former counterparts, he's no longer serving as lieutenant governor in his state. What he said was the best part about his job is that when he votes, he wins. and so as lieutenant governor, as president of the Senate, if there is a 19-19 tie in the state Senate, I will be able to cast a tie-breaking vote.
And this is the automatic responsibility for the lieutenant
that is
governor
defined by the Constitution of the state of Michigan. So yes, these are my constitutional responsibilities. So beyond that, my set of things that I work on and that I focus on is based on just my relationship with Governor Whitmer, who I've been proud to serve with for these last 6.5 years. And, we determine the priorities for our administration and what we want to see in Michigan. And then I go and try to make those things happen.
Absolutely. And 6.5 years is a long time to serve in any position.
It's the longest I've ever had a job.
I'm curious, what have you seen in terms of developments, either state of Michigan or just in the interactions that you have in government as a whole? What are some of the things that come to mind in this 6.5 year journey so far?
I mean, the thing that's been one of the biggest privileges is, so as a kid, I'm from the east side of Detroit. And as a kid, I didn't see most of Michigan. Like the thing that got me basically outside of the metro area was basketball tournament or a basketball camp. That's how I got to go to Lansing, was because of a basketball tournament. I got to go to Kalamazoo to play a basketball tournament. I went to Olivet College for a basketball camp, like that kind of thing, right? But as lieutenant governor, being responsible for the entire state of Michigan, all 83 counties in our state, both peninsulas. Michigan is the biggest state physically east of the Mississippi River in America. As a lieutenant governor, I get to go everywhere in Michigan and meet people. And so I have been all over the state. I've been to all 83 counties in Michigan 3 or more times. I put in the work on the road to go meet Michiganders where they are. And so I have been able to hear from them what's important to them, what they're excited about, and what they're angry about or frustrated with. And in those conversations, I'm having, and there could be, one-on-one conversations, meeting with small business owners, meeting in somebody's living room, meeting at a city hall. Like I've been to every, community and tribal college. I've been to all of our 14 public universities. And what I hear about are just issues that matter to people. Housing. How do we get more affordable places to live and have them be more available in more places? Healthcare, particularly like mental health services. Everywhere in Michigan, people are worried about, being able to afford their medicine, but also worried about, like, do they or someone in their life have someone who can help them if they are, depressed, which so many people are, if they are, going through some kind of episode, if they're struggling with addiction, want healthcare services to support them. Everybody in Michigan is worried about, the economy and their place in it. Is my job today going to be here tomorrow, or is AI going to eat it? Is the direction of manufacturing going in a way that's going to help me still be able to support that? If I want to go into an area of the economy that might not be as big in Michigan, do I have to leave Michigan to do that? And these are the things that people are worried about. Education. Like I have 3 school-age children. My kids all go to Detroit public schools. I got twins who are going to the 7th grade. A baby girl is going to the 1st grade. They want their education outcomes to get better. And that's an urgent thing for me as a school-age parent. So I hear about these issues, and I also see opportunities, though. I see people who are hungry, who are ambitious, who are creative, who are industrious. Like people in Michigan can make something out of nothing the way that nobody else can.
For sure.
So I take inspiration from that. And so as the lieutenant governor of Michigan, a person who nobody like me has ever been in this job. And that's not just because I'm Black, although that is also true. But I'm an engineer. I'm a software developer. That's what I went to University of Michigan for. I've started and sold 2 technology businesses in my career. I was a software developer at Microsoft right out of college. Like that makes me a problem solver. So when you identify a problem to me, I'm going to try to fix it. I'm going to find a solution or work with you to build a solution. So like on housing, I drove the investment in our state's housing trust fund, this community development fund. It's something that exists literally to fund affordable housing. The state of Michigan had it on the shelf for 60 years and never used it. So as an engineer, if I see a tool that we're not using that can help, that's offensive. We need to go do something with that. Right. And so I picked it up off the shelf, put money in that fund, and now we have tens of thousands of new housing units online at the fastest pace ever in the history of the state of Michigan. Put in place more tools so more people can become first-time home buyers. A challenge for a lot of particular communities, like, there's not enough single men buying houses. You know what I mean? And so I'm about solving problems that I hear from people. And I think people would say to you that when they talk to me and they say they need something to happen, I'm the one to make it happen.
Absolutely. And as that problem solver, you're looking to go from lieutenant governor to become the governor starting in 2026. And you're in the midst of the campaign season and beginning that journey. Why now? And what has that journey been like for you so far?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, why now is because as I've spent time getting to know Michigan, getting to know the people of Michigan, getting to know our different communities and what people's priorities are, I feel like I've been able to deliver value on the things that matter to people. Again, housing, again, healthcare. I led the establishment of something called a Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic program. I worked with Senator Debbie Stabenow before she retired to get that off the ground in Michigan and opened up 40 new mental health facilities all across the state of Michigan that can serve people regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of whether or not they have insurance. Because I hear people in every community talking about they need or know someone who needs help. I'll tell you a story. So Cass won the state football tournament. Okay.
Shout out to CT.
So these young men came to the state capitol and they requested a meeting with me, which of course I granted. Okay, these people are young and ambitious and smart. Like, I want to talk to them. So we get in there and I'm like, okay, look, all right, gentlemen, you have me. Like, what do you want to talk about? Like before I finished the sentence, what they said to me is, we worry about our friends' mental health. Can you help us do something about that? Like, this is real and clear and present for people. So, what I see is a state full of people who are ready to take their next step, who are ready to do something ambitious, who are ready to be successful. And I want to make sure that they see Michigan as the best place for them to stay and succeed and to do the thing and be their best. And if somebody's not in Michigan yet, well, they see this as the best place to come and grow. I believe that we can build what we need to build so that can be true for everybody in Michigan. Because what I want significantly less of is for people to be confronted with the same, thing that I was confronted with when I graduated from Michigan. So in 2005, when I came out of school, I wanted to be a software developer. And I felt like I needed to go to another part of the country to pursue that career. And I was heartbroken by that. This is the place that made me who I am. Like, I grew up on the east side of Detroit. I went to high school in Farmington. And it's like, this place made me who I am. And I'm proud of that. But I was devastated. I felt like, because I wanted to be this kind of professional, I had to go somewhere else. So in my career was about finding a way to get back home to be useful to the place that made me who I am. And so now I believe that I have an opportunity as lieutenant governor, and a bigger opportunity as the next governor of Michigan, to get the things right we need to get right so that nobody in Michigan feels that they need to make that choice, not just in the software industry, but in whatever they want to pursue. Whoever they want to be, they can be that here. Know that they can be safe, supported, and successful here in the state of Michigan.
I love that. And as somebody who has left the state of Michigan, for me, it was always, I knew I wanted to have my roots in Detroit specifically, but I always wanted to leave, go get my graduate degree elsewhere so that I can be able to bring it back home, and had an opportunity to have a stint in Miami, Florida, and then go out to Seattle, and then started working at Microsoft as well. And I mean, that's where the opportunity is. That's where the tech bubble is. But it was always intended for me to come back home, and I wanted to come back home for other reasons as well, but I'm not going to get into that. I'll ask you about your experience in Seattle a little bit later.
No, I mean, look, I think there's nothing wrong with gaining experience in other places. But what used to break my heart was people who had moved away for whatever reason, and they said, I'm never going back home.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think about it in the conversations I have all over, I talk to parents, right, who are like terrified that if their kid leaves, they ain't never gonna come home. And I recognize that because my parents felt that way. My mother, her baby went to Seattle. Is he coming back? My wife is from Southfield. Was she coming back? And so I just think but if we can make it so that everybody sees Michigan as a place they can stay and succeed, that means we've gotten a lot of stuff right. That means we've gotten access to childcare right. We've gotten K-12 education right. We've gotten access to higher education and career training and skill development and certifications right. We've gotten diversifying and broadening our economy right. We've gotten being able to, if you have an idea to start a business, to make this a great place to do that, or to start it, or to grow it and scale it. We've gotten right, if you're ready for retirement, that this is a great place to retire. It's the only age-friendly state in the Midwest, according to the AARP. I mean, it's like, so I want whatever the question is, I want the answer to be Michigan, and for you to be able to take that next step, whatever, regardless of what you're ready to do. Yeah,
and I love being able to attract elsewhere to Michigan, because we definitely are more than capable, which you had mentioned. So I'm gonna take a pause real quick because I want to have some fun on Black Fridays and introduce you to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Friday. Right. So, Lieutenant Governor, I know you suited and booted today, but you're going to have to give us some bars. You're going to have to give us like a quick 8 or 16.
You know what, man? That is not my ministry, bro. I like rap. I listen to rap. It's basically the only kind of music I listen to. I can't give you nothing, man. But what I'll say is this. My art is being able to connect with people and speak and converse with people. Yeah. But I can't give you no verses.
For sure. For sure. Well, that actually is going to be helpful for you because it's just a random assortment of questions and they all about you. So I just need you to answer each one and answer honestly.
I got you.
All right. So I saw some footage recently of you hooping on the court and some pretty impressive highlights. So I need you to give us your basketball comparison. I need you to tell me who would you say is your NBA equivalent.
I'm going to tell you I'm going to show my age a little bit because first I'll tell you who I modeled my game after.
Okay.
So coming up, when I was in 5th grade, my school picture was with a bright yellow turtleneck, a terrible haircut that my father gave me, and an authentic blue Chris Webber jersey.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. My grandma bought me that jersey. I went to the draft when I was in 5th grade. We got this new kid at our school whose dad, I don't know what his dad's job was, but somehow he had tickets to the draft. I went to the draft when C Webb got picked.
Fire.
You couldn't tell me nothing. I modeled my game after a combination of C Webb and KG. So I was tall, I was skinny, whatever. I could shoot. I was a rebounder. And so I was trying to be basically the original stretch four. Okay. And so that's what I saw for, even though I didn't have like a name at the time. but I was trying to be a combination of KG with his just like versatility on the court, intensity. Chris Webber had the best hands of any power forward you'd ever seen, whatever, like just touch, both hands, both shoulders, all that. So that's what I modeled my game after.
Got you. And out of all the traveling that you've done in the state of Michigan, what's the one place, it could be a county, a city, whatever the case may be, that has like fascinated you where you were like, man, I didn't know nothing about any of this?
The most beautiful thing that I've seen in Michigan is something called Lake of the Clouds. It's in the Upper Peninsula in the Porcupine Mountains, which are like kind of, if you go all the way up to Upper Peninsula, make a left and go all the way west to almost Wisconsin. And there, the Lake of the Clouds, basically this lake that's in the midst of this mountain range. And it's called Lake of the Clouds because when you look at the water, you see the reflection of the clouds above. It is absolutely breathtaking. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. and it absolutely takes my breath away, man. So that's the thing that comes to mind for me when it's like what is just unique and spectacular and beautiful in Michigan is out of our just the natural beauty and wonder of our state is that.
Love it. And I know you're a techie like me. So what's your favorite piece of technology? Do you got a bunch of gadgets at home? Or? I
mean, I put the iOS beta on my phone immediately. But let me tell you something about that. So like I said, I double majored in computer science, computer engineering at Michigan. I restarted and ran an organization called Black Electrical Engineers and Computer Scientists when I was there. Basically, it's like, there weren't that many of us in the department. I'm trying to help us survive. And to get through this. But what I was really proud of is being able to work with and mentor a lot of students who came behind me, just like people who came before me mentored me. And one of the young men who I am really proud to have mentored, a young man named Justin Washington, he is an engineer at Apple. And if you want to see Justin, you should watch the WWDC keynote where he gave the presentation on tvOS. Oh, wow. So I put the tvOS beta on my TV at home too because of that. But yeah, this is great. This young man, he's from Detroit, like amazing, ambitious, smart, hungry, talented, like he's great. And so it was just, I'm watching him like a proud dad as he's giving this presentation in front of the entire globe about what, the next version of tvOS is going to look like.
That's dope. And I got to ask you, this might be the most important question I asked you today. Do Detroiters have an accent? Or do Michiganders have an accent?
No, absolutely not. We talk normal. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Everybody's trying to sound like us.
I feel like we have an accent in the sense of how we talk, but not like the actual, what am I trying to say? Like, how certain places, like in the South, it may be a certain twang, like Boston, New York, very like distinct accents, but I think it's more so in our dialect and not the way that we sound.
I think that's an important distinction. I mean, we define culture, so of course we define language in Detroit. That makes sense. But, I do think that, as it relates to Michigan more broadly, I do think it's in certain parts of Michigan, or especially as we get into northern Michigan and the upper peninsula of Michigan, I think I can hear a bit of an accent there.
Yes.
But no, everybody's trying to get toward how people in Michigan sound. That's how I feel about it.
Gotcha. Like you said, we set the trends. Being a Detroiter, also a very important question. What's your Coney order? And if you're not eating Coney anymore, what used to be your order?
We still eating Coney.
Okay.
So, I lived downtown. I lived right across the street from King, basically, as a kid. And so, like, east side downtown. My dad used to work downtown. So I spent a lot of time in Lafayette as a kid. I still go there now. My kids love American, though. So it's kind of funny. I'm like bipartisan all of a sudden. But I'm regular, man. Just like, give me straight, Coney, onions, chili. It's the only thing I eat mustard on.
Okay.
I don't even like mustard outside of that, but I eat it on a Coney. Yeah.
It come with the territory.
Yeah.
That's a huge undertaking. If you just don't mess with mustard at all, and then you,
I know, man.
Yeah.
It's just the only thing I eat mustard on. It's funny, but that's how I got it from the beginning. So it's what it is.
For sure. Well, thank you for partaking in Freestyle Fridays. You successfully passed, so appreciate you for engaging in the randomness.
Absolutely.
And I would love to be able to talk about your journey into your civic duty, because I guess one could say that you didn't have a traditional route to doing so. So would love to know how a Black man from Detroit was able to, go pursue his education in engineering and then now become the lieutenant governor with aspirations of becoming the governor.
Yeah, my path is definitely, not a straight one here. I mean, that's evidenced by there are 0 people in the country who have my background, my professional background, who are serving a statewide elected office. But I look, as a young kid, my grandma taught school for 40 years at Munger Middle School on the west side. But she bought her baby a computer when he was 5 years old. I don't know. I never got a chance to ask her like specifically and precisely like what was like the thing that she decided, what I need to do, I need to buy this boy a computer. But she did that. So I was the first kid on the block with a computer. And I fell in love with that thing, man. and like my parents let it be mine in a way that was really important and that I appreciate now as a parent. So it gave me this like kind of comfort and confidence with technology that I could manipulate, that I could make it do what I wanted it to do. It didn't control me, I controlled it. At the same time, I'm developing this sort of love and relationship with technology. I'm also observing my parents who were very active in our community. They ran the Elmwood Neighborhood Association. And then when we moved to Farmington, they ran the neighborhood association when we were out there. But they had like, real jobs. My mother was an accountant at General Motors. My dad worked for the Department of Defense. But like they were super actively engaged in the community. They did things like worked with our neighbors to make sure that there was public art in front of all the apartment buildings over there. So if you go drive over by them buildings by Ralph Bunch and by Coleman Young Rec Center, you'll see like sculptures. So that's because of that advocacy. That stuff is there. And so I always knew that was something that was important. I absorbed that experience. And even then as coming of age, like we always had like C-SPAN on the TV and Motown on the stereo. So it was like I always sort of was exposed to just political dialogue and discourse. My father was always very knowledgeable. My mother was the one who was like more like active and engaged, but my dad paid attention to everything. And so I always knew that was important. I just also thought you were supposed to have like a real job and like go make some money. So that's what I went to school for. When I was on campus at University of Michigan, I was there when our affirmative action policy was challenged to the Supreme Court in 2004. I was running an organization for Black men on campus, again, while studying engineering. Heads. Yeah. So I was the first vice chairman of Heads and then the second chairman of Heads for my last 2 years. But I was core member since my third year. And so still active. I still try to stay connected. And, but running a student organization for Black men at a time when Black people's presence on campus was questioned, that demanded a response. And so for me, being engaged in that, I learned a lot about that. Was the first time I did like direct action, where there was like this affirmative action bake sale where the people were in Angel Hall and it's like Young Americans for Freedom, I think was the group, this Republican student group. and they were like selling baked goods. Like the same baked good had one price if you were white. It was like $8 if you were white, $4 if you were black, 25 cents if you Native American, you know, $1 if you are Latino. It's like super offensive stuff, man. And so we decided we need to do something about that. So me, I'm 6'8", you know, stand tall from Michigan. and so, but like most of my friends are like 6'3" and up too, right? So we was like, okay, we're gonna put an end to this bake sale. So we put on black hoodies, went to Angel Hall, stood in front of the counter, and the bake sale ended minutes later. So I share that because what I learned was that, you know, if you see something wrong, you need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Like we shouldn't let it go when it hurts people. And so I picked that up in school. So anyway, I fast forward, I go, you know, we graduated, moved out to Seattle to work at Microsoft headquarters, started my first business called Detroit Intern. It was a job and internship website here in the city that I started because I felt so guilty about leaving. So it's like, well, maybe if I could get other people to get internships in Detroit, then maybe they could find a job in Detroit and maybe they won't move to Seattle like I just did. Yeah. Like that was the whole premise of the business. And, but even out there, I still stayed connected. I started a blog in 2005 called The Super Spade. Black thought at the highest level. Talk about pretentious, right? But like, started this blog in November of 2005, and like, you know, so I was that sort of was a platform for me to start thinking about like what it meant to just like have a public voice, and just talk about, you know, talking about current events. And in 2005, like political blogging was still something that was ascendant. Yeah. And there weren't a lot of like Black folks blogging about politics at that time. So I got a chance to meet a lot of interesting people online who were sort of doing that and sort of coming up with me in that realm. So that even opened me up to like, oh, these are people who do political activism like as professionals. I never knew that was a thing. Like I thought like you can't get your health insurance being an activist. Like, I don't, you know? And so I was ultimately inspired though, President Obama's campaign in 2008. I volunteered on it out in Seattle. I got like an email to go to the campaign office in downtown Seattle, which was a block away from my wife's apartment in downtown Seattle. And it was on that campaign that I met people who were technologists, but who worked in politics. And that just blew my mind. Like if you can like use like software skills to help people realize their like political potential and political power, I never knew that was a thing. I thought you use those software skills to make people more productive at work, like I was doing with SharePoint. You know, I thought that's what this was for on one level. But then when I thought about it a little more, it was like my first job, I built computers for a rec center in Detroit on the west side, where, you know, Butzel, where we I taught people how to use computers, how to use this technology to do something that wasn't available to them before. I showed a little girl the internet for the first time. I showed an elder how to like use the mouse by playing solitaire, you know, single click, double click, drag on solitaire, which is special because my grandma taught me how to play solitaire when I was little. You know, I showed a lady how to make a resume so she could get a different job. So this helped me remember that that's what technology is for. It's for positioning people to do things they otherwise couldn't do. It's like what Steve Jobs said, that computers are bicycles for the mind. They enable you to be more productive and more efficient. And so because of that inspiration, because of that campaign, I was inspired by President Obama like so many other people were. So like I actually quit my job at Microsoft, got married a week later. Then a month later, my wife and I moved to Washington, D.C. for me to become a community organizer, classically trained community organizer, but one who knew how to use technology to reach people. And that introduced me for the first time to just at least being adjacent to just like the government and like what the federal government in that case was doing. But I worked on campaigns all over the country: civic, social justice, economic justice, racial justice, immigration reform, protecting voting rights, expanding access to healthcare, including expanding Medicaid. Well, a campaign I worked on here in Michigan, which little did I know was foreshadowing, because the person who led the negotiation for that expanded Medicaid in Michigan was then State Senator Gretchen Whitmer. So we aligned on these things even that many years earlier. And so I was doing that work, was having a great time. But I like I said, man, I missed home. I wanted to come home. And so I wanted to figure out what I could do that was like useful. I had an idea for another business. That was actually a bad idea. Everybody who's an entrepreneur has another idea for a business, but it might not be a good one. I had an idea for a business that wasn't necessarily viable, but I was thinking about like, what can I do that'll touch the most people? Like that'll be useful to the most people in Detroit in this case. And the conclusion I reached is that, well, the thing that's supposed to reach everybody, if it's working right, is the government. Mm-hmm. And especially at a time when in this 2014, people had lost trust in the government. We were in bankruptcy and we still dealing with the fallout from Kwame. It's like, how can we rebuild trust in this institution so that it can serve everybody? And I felt like I could use what I'd learned, both in school, in business, in the different parts of the country that I lived in, the relationships that I've made. I thought I could be helpful there. I thought I could actually do something to reach everybody. Mm-hmm. So that's what opened me up to working in the public sector. And that's what I would ask anybody to consider. I think that every talented person should consider a stint in public service, because we need talented people to say yes to helping everybody. Mm-hmm. And you know, a lot of companies do good work in the community, but you can't reach everybody through a company. A lot of advocacy organizations or direct service organizations do good work in the community, but everybody's not their constituent. But everybody is the government's constituent when it's working well. And so we need talented people to say yes. So that's what opened me up to come into the public sector. I worked in city government in Detroit for 2.5 years. I was coerced into running for office in 2017, which I did unsuccessfully. We could talk a little bit more about that. But then, you know, Gretchen Whitmer called me and asked me to be a running mate. And that's how I got here.
I love how no matter where you went with like your skills and your passion and what you were trained in, you always were able to bring it back to some level of civic engagement at the smallest form, whether it's like people in the community and upskilling them and helping them identify what those things look like. And being a Black man from the city of Detroit, how has it been for you being able to make those connections around the state of Michigan? Because growing up in Detroit and the Metro Detroit area is completely different from the Upper Peninsula and other places. So I'm curious how you've been able to foster those connections.
You know, it's interesting. So I think people respect the consistency and the presence, and then I keep showing up. That helps a lot. So some of it is brute force, but I've found people to be very, very receptive, because I think people can sense people's energy. Right? Yeah. It's like they know that it's not fake. That matters. And then the other piece is like, as part of my childhood, like, I moved from the city to the suburbs. Yeah, I went from a classroom that had all Black kids and 2 white kids to being the second Black kid in the school building. So like I had to learn how to navigate, you know, different circumstances and cultures and races at a pretty young age. And so that combined with my parents giving me, you know, a level of self-awareness and self-confidence and self-assurance. So like, I'm pretty comfortable everywhere, you know? And so again, I think people can sense that if you're not nervous about them, they won't be nervous around you to some extent. Yeah. You know, that's not like always true, but to some extent. And so I show up with just the kind of energy of wanting to listen and understand, wanting to create and add value. And I think people sense that. Yeah. And because of that, I feel like I've been able to serve more effectively as Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, meet people where they at.
That's right.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So, Lieutenant Governor, could you enlighten us to what you feel like is the most impactful thing that being in public service and sitting in the seat has taught you so far?
I mean, I'm moved by the voters of Michigan blessed us with a lot of tools to be able to help people when they elected and reelected me and Governor Whitmer. And that means we can do a lot of good. And so one of the programs I'm most proud of, and it also really happens to be something that like would not have happened if I wasn't a software developer. And that's a program that will revolutionize the lives of 1 million people in 10 years. Like position people to be able to, you know, get an apartment, get a mortgage, get a job, go to school, or be like reunited with their kids they've been separated from. And that's something called Clean Slate. It's an automatic criminal record clearance program that says that, you know, if you've committed certain kinds of offenses that were like not violent or assaultive, and after you've served your time and you've been having committed more offenses for 5 years, that rather than having to go through a long, expensive, and arduous process to get those offenses cleared off your record that the law says are eligible to be cleared, we just clear them, which means that you can actually get that job that you otherwise would have been able to get because you had a record. Not because you didn't do anything or weren't qualified, but just because this thing was in your past.
Yeah.
And already 330,000 people are fully able to participate in civic and economic life because of that. Now, what's interesting about it is I automated that process. And what that means is I had to connect the systems. So Michigan has 83 counties. There's 81 different county jail systems in Michigan. All those jail systems have like a database.
Yeah.
It's like, here are the people who committed crimes. Here's what they did. Here's how much time they got left to serve, all that kind of stuff.
And none of them talk to each other, I'm assuming?
All 81 of them.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I had to lead the process to do the work to connect those systems. But connecting those systems unlocked economic potential in Michigan at a time when business owners have so many open positions that they are searching and struggling to find qualified people. Well, here's a bunch of qualified, ambitious, hungry people.
Yeah.
And so let's position them to be able to be in the workforce. And so I'm really proud of that. That would not have happened without my technical expertise, but it's changing lives every single day. I'm proud of the impact that's going to have.
That's dope. And being a Black man from the city of Detroit, how has it been for you being able to make those connections around the state of Michigan? Because growing up in Detroit and the Metro Detroit area is completely different from the Upper Peninsula and other places. So I'm curious how you've been able to foster those connections.
You know, it's interesting. So I think people respect the consistency and the presence, and then I keep showing up. That helps a lot. So some of it is brute force, but I've found people to be very, very receptive, because I think people can sense people's energy. Right? Yeah. It's like they know that it's not fake. That matters. And then the other piece is, like, as part of my childhood, like, I moved from the city to the suburbs. Yeah, I went from a classroom that had all Black kids and 2 white kids to being the second Black kid in the school building. So, like, I had to learn how to navigate, different circumstances and cultures and races at a pretty young age. And so that, combined with my parents giving me, a level of self-awareness and self-confidence and self-assurance. So, like, I'm pretty comfortable everywhere, and so, again, I think people can sense that if you're not nervous about them, they won't be nervous around you to some extent. Yeah. That's not like always true, but to some extent. And so I show up with just the kind of energy of wanting to listen and understand, wanting to create and add value. And I think people sense that. Yeah. And because of that, I feel like I've been able to serve more effectively as Lieutenant Governor. Yeah, meet people where they at. That's right. Yeah, love that. Yeah. I'm curious to, given the fact that you have had these different opportunities at entrepreneurial ventures, how do you feel like you apply that entrepreneurial mindset to the work that you do today? I mean, well, I'll answer that in 2 ways. So one, I very clearly remember my experience as an entrepreneur trying to raise money for a business in Michigan in the early 2000s. And not being successful at that. Yeah. Not because the business wasn't successful. The business, I started with 2 of my friends from childhood who also went to Michigan. That business sold 7 years later to Kellogg Foundation. Like, it was a going concern. It was a real business. But that was hard to raise money for its technology. It's a web-based software business that was difficult in Michigan at that time. So I've done work to make sure that is not a reality for people going forward. I started the Michigan Innovation Fund, a $60 million fund for Michigan entrepreneurs who are ready to start and scale businesses, to know that they can raise capital for it in the state of Michigan. And that's important because, especially scalable and defensible technology businesses, like, you go where the capital is. And so if you are ready to get your next, whether it's your angel seed round, series A, B, C, if you have to go elsewhere to get that money, it makes it more likely that you will relocate some or all of your business to that place. Yes. And so creating more vehicles for people to raise that money in Michigan means that Michigan can be a lot stickier in terms of keeping our entrepreneurs here. So I created that. I created something with the Innovate Capital Fund, where we park resources at universities in Michigan. Because like our university, Michigan, is the most productive research university in the country as far as the patents that it files on any given year. But we have not been as productive in terms of turning those patents into businesses. And so this capital parked at these universities gives an additional incentive to professors and researchers and grad students or whomever to commercialize that research, to start a business based on this and give it a shot. And so I think about that because of my experience as an entrepreneur, wanting, again, more people to feel like there's a pathway for their idea to grow here in Michigan. And so if there's a path for it and they can see it and it's viable, they'll stay here and try to make it succeed. And that's what this is about.
Absolutely. And what do you feel like is the state of entrepreneurship now in the state of Michigan? I know that there are some challenges in the city of Detroit from the standpoint of, if I want to open up a brick and mortar, there's a ton of steps that I have to go through in order to even get that ordinance filed. But for you and the seat that you sit in, what are some of the challenges? And then what are some of the ways that you're working to alleviate some of that?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I talked about people in Michigan being very industrious. Like, we have a lot of entrepreneurially minded people in the city and across cities in Michigan, across the whole state. And so I think we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to feed that and nurture that. Because even coming up, like, I didn't actually know what an entrepreneur was.
Yeah.
When I was going through, I didn't get that until like the end of high school. And even then I had a very narrow conception of it. But like, as a kid, I didn't realize that like my barber was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that like a person started the grocery store. I didn't know that. That was like somebody's enterprise and their whole life poured into this thing. So I think that we've tried to be much more, make entrepreneurship much more accessible, not in terms of like making it easier, because like being an entrepreneur is not easy. Yeah. But in terms of like people being able to grasp the concept of what an entrepreneur is, who gets to call themselves an entrepreneur, who can be a business owner, and realizing that that is something that is more available than people might think to them. And so that's one of the reasons why I led the work, for example, to make financial literacy a requirement for graduating high school. As part of that exercise and getting that financial literacy credit, you also are exposed to like, this is what entrepreneurship is, and exposed to understanding that what does finance mean if you are an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur. And it sort of opens up that window for people to look into, such that if it's something they want to pursue later, they have a foundation to build upon. So I think it's really important. The city of Detroit, or the region, the Metro Detroit region, was for a few years the number one startup ecosystem in the country, according to Startup Genome. And right now it's like number 2, according to that same
Who was one?
Say what?
Who was number 1?
Doesn't matter. It ain't us again. So what that speaks to the fact that a lot of people have come together to try to make this, again, an amazing place to have an idea and start something and grow something. And we've seen, the growth in the software businesses that are starting in and around Detroit. It's a significantly different reality than it was 20 years ago when I was trying to do that. And that's a good thing. And so I think there's progress, and I'm working to help, set up versions of that in other parts of Michigan. Like, for example, Michigan has 21% of the fresh water in the world. We have more here than any place else, any single place. Well, if we have so much water, we might as well be a center of excellence for how we manage and relate to water. So I drove a $15 million state investment a few years ago to start something called the Freshwater Research and Innovation Center in Traverse City, Michigan. And this will be a center of excellence and expertise for research and development for entrepreneurs and startups who are doing things related to water, fish and wildlife management, marine autonomy, marine electrification, all kinds of technologies related to clean energy that are grounded in water. Michigan should be the best at this anywhere in the world. And now we have a center of excellence that is being built in Traverse City to do that. And so I want to establish those kinds of things, again, all over Michigan that leverage our expertise, that leverage what is unique and special and powerful about us as a people, about Michigan as a state, about the resources that we steward, and how to leverage that to create value for people. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is, all entrepreneurship is not about, tech and things like that. One of the things I'm probably most proud of is the establishment of something called the Michigan Economic Opportunity Fund. So started out as a $10 million fund. But we got these resources in part from the federal government, from the Biden-Harris administration. There's something called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI. And so I led our state application for SSBCI dollars and said explicitly that we want to use these resources for the people who've been designed out of opportunity, for those disadvantaged entrepreneurs, be they women, people of color, people who are living with disabilities, and who have not been able to get access to a bank loan because they were designed out of that process.
Right.
Say, well, the state of Michigan, we will be your partner to help you take that next step, to give your business a chance. So I rolled that out in partnership with Michigan Women Forward and Huntington Bank and the Balmer Group, all stood with me in the state of Michigan at the Huntington headquarters here downtown, right by Comerica Park. And you know who the first award recipient of that was?
Who?
A hair salon that opened up a location on Michigan Avenue. It's like, this is what this is about. Again, we want to broaden the set of people who see entrepreneurship as a possibility for them. And this fund enables that, and for people all across the state of Michigan. So I'm really proud of that. And I think when you talk about the state of entrepreneurship, it's the state of people who have the confidence in Michigan to know this is a place they should start and grow.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I brag on about Michigan and Detroit. When I'm other places or talking to my friends from other states, I'm like, we have a budding tech ecosystem that's really, for me, I started to notice it maybe like around 2016, 17, somewhere. Yeah. Like I could tell something was on the horizon. And then, like, as you can see now, like we're starting to see the fruit of a lot of that foundation that started back then. So that's one of the things I definitely brag to people. I'm like, look, we got things going in Michigan and Detroit for sure.
That's right.
So also another thing that I talk to people about is that, and sometimes it's like a running joke, at least for me, is that I always talk about, well, let me start here. You hear people talk about Detroit and how Detroit goes, the state of Michigan goes, because it's the largest city here and for a lot of other reasons. However, I feel at times like I tell people like there's Detroit and then there's Michigan. So it's kind of like almost a tale of two different stories, which I mean, essentially it is. It's different parts of Michigan, different ways of life and things like that. And I just wanted to know, like, for you, running this campaign, or in the work that you've done over the last 6.5 years, what are your thoughts or approach around to making the state more collaborative or becoming like more of a ecosystem to support each other versus it kind of being, Detroit here and then everywhere else in the state?
I mean, look, our success is connected, just period, full stop. And for me, it's one of the reasons why I travel the state of Michigan so aggressively. Look, people can tell I'm Black. And people can tell I'm from Detroit, but showing up consistently all over Michigan, like I feel like I can be, a conduit to open people's, perceptions and uncover possibilities for people working together, or just making sure that we're all invested in our shared success and our shared interests. Yeah. Like the truth is, like, nobody of good conscience, in Michigan should want anything bad for our biggest city or our second biggest city or our third biggest city or whatever. Like, we want the state to succeed because we can thrive together. Areas of the state of Michigan growing is good. Yeah. Including the city of Detroit, or the fastest growing part of our state, which is in West Michigan, out surrounding Grand Rapids. And so I think that you build those bridges, that you build those relationships by presence. You got to show up. And that is why I put more road time in than anybody in the last 50 years in Michigan. Like, there is not a place that I can go in Michigan and say I haven't been there at creative value. And I think that consistency helps to show people that relationships are possible, because you can trust consistency. You can trust somebody that shows up and that listens and that is going to go try and make something happen with what he heard. And so what I'm offering, I think, to the state of Michigan is someone who will build on that foundation, but who people can trust, can get things done, will do will try to do what he says he's going to try to do, but who ultimately is going to do everything in his power to make something happen.
Absolutely. And for you, do you ever think about the significance of being the highest ranking Black official in the state of Michigan's history? Does that ever like sit with you, or are you kind of like, I do my job and I'm working for the people for the state of Michigan?
I mean, it's all yes. I mean, the answer to your question is yes. I mean, okay. I'm mindful of it. I think it becomes most evident in the eyes of like our elders or kids. Mm. Like I can tell like that this elder Black woman is looking at me with a different sense of pride. Mm-hmm. I can tell that this little Black boy who's 5 is looking at me with a different sense of like wonder and aspiration. Mm-hmm. That just wouldn't be true if I wasn't Black. And I take that very seriously. And I think that so how I've tried to, carry out my job and do my work, and how I've tried to chronicle it a little bit, on social, like I want people to feel like we on this journey together. It's the first time Michigan's ever been down this road. So let's go down this road together. Yeah. And I think it's a road that we can travel. I think it's a road that's productive. I think it's a road that's important. I think it's a road that opens up more possibilities than it shuts off. And I think we should continue to recognize that, like, in this time, in the times that we're approaching, like the same old playbook and the same old people ain't gonna get stuff done. Mm-hmm. We need to be open to different energy, to different perspectives. And that's a good thing. It's not something to run away from. Mm-hmm. At a time when you got Trump and these Republicans are trying to run away from the fact that they don't recognize that differences are where value gets unlocked. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. It's always been a strength of the state of Michigan. When we've been at our best, we define the middle class and open up the middle class when we let a lot of people access the middle class. Mm-hmm. The middle class would never be what it was going to be if it was only for a certain community. Mm-hmm. It could never reach its full potential. And so I hope to have that be reflected in how I serve in this job and how I can serve going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely huge. Just thinking about the capabilities for the state of Michigan. Like you said, one of the things I want to do for my civic engagement, so to speak, was to be able to leverage this platform to expose people to their local government officials and the things that's happening around them, because exactly what happened in the White House, and then to a lot of people's detriment, and a lot of misinformation and half information and just not good things that's going on. And so it's like, how can you take the power back into your own hands? And it starts with where you live, like the people who are making decisions on your behalf on a daily basis. You need to know about those people, know something about them, or know about the policies, the things that they care about, because they're the ones that's working for you. And, granted, what happens in the White House happens. We all, vote for that, or, should be voting. But you have a lot more control over what's going on around you daily.
I mean, well, look, we as people are powerful. We have agency. We have the ability to make decisions. All of the systems that we live within or work within, they didn't just happen. Mm-hmm. These are not ordained by God. You know what I'm saying? It's like they are the results of choices that people made or did not make. And it was oftentimes in the past a very limited, non-representative group of people who made those choices. Yeah. And so we have an opportunity today to say that a different set of people, a broader set of people, a more diverse, reflective, connected, inspired, resourced, equipped, credentialed, like a different set of people can make a different set of choices that can build a different set of systems that are optimized for a different set of outcomes. And we can do that, but that requires participation. Like nothing has ever gotten better through disengagement. Like if you don't water plants, they die. Yep. And that's what we're working with disengagement. And so we cannot afford to do that.
Absolutely. And could you speak to how at least the state of Michigan can be able to embrace DEI with the dismantling of DEI that we are starting to see, to the point of exactly what you're saying, being able to have those opportunities to embrace diversity in government and business and things like that, to help us be more collaborative as a community?
It starts with having a vision for the future that is big enough to include everybody. That's a difference between, that's what's different about the Republicans. Mm-hmm. Their vision is so small, it's so tight. That everybody can't fit. And so they have to leave people out. and they jump over each other to leave people out.
Yeah.
I think that's problematic. I think that we are better when we're bigger. You know what I'm saying? I think that we are stronger when we recognize that everybody has a role to play. Mm-hmm. And we should make sure that people know that they can, again, have a place to be safe and be supported and be successful here. And that if more people can be successful, that means there's more success.
Yeah.
You know, and so we need to lean into that and ask the question about what has stood between people and their potential. And then how can we remove those barriers so that more people can be successful and say yes to the state of Michigan? So that's how we need to approach it. That's the foundation. Mm-hmm. And so then it's a matter of when we see a system, when we see a process, when we see a program that for some reason is failing a group of people, then we need to understand that. Mm-hmm. And we need to solve that.
Yeah.
And you can call it whatever you want, but I call that progress.
Absolutely. Do you have any thoughts on how we can grow or do our part to help grow the population or for the state of Michigan to be able to allow people to have more access to those great things that we're going to see down the road?
I think some of this is we touched on it earlier. It's just like, I just want people, you know, you have these different points in life where you make a choice or a choice is presented to you. And we just have to make sure we do the work so that Michigan is a good answer at all those choice points. So, you know, if you decide that you want to, you know, become a registered apprentice carpenter, mm-hmm. we need to have the best programs for that in the country. Mm-hmm. If you decide you want to become a childcare education professional, we need to make sure that we not only have good programs to get those credentials and degrees, but that we pay better. You know, so that if you're choosing between doing that job in Michigan or Ohio, for that and every other reason, you choose Michigan over Ohio. Yeah. You know, like I think we have to, when we can think about it on that granular of a level. But so again, what are the barriers? What are the reasons that someone would say no? And transform that situation such that it's a reason for somebody to say yes. And so that's how I think about it, because it enables people who are here to stay here, and know that they can succeed. Mm-hmm. And then as far as like doing the work of communicating beyond the state of Michigan and letting people know this is the place where they can come and grow, just to let people know that that is possible here, mm-hmm. that like we have opportunity. Michigan has been that place already in history. Mm-hmm. That's how my family got here. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like they got here because it was like, we need to go someplace where we can be successful. We can be safer than we are in Alabama. Where they go, they went to Michigan. Yep. You know what I mean? So like we can do a version of that, mm-hmm. you know, going forward. And I think that's important. I mean, our state has now turned the tide and the population is growing. Mm-hmm. A big contribution to why our population has been growing is because of immigration, mm-hmm. you know, and that's not something to run away from. It's something to say that, hey, people see Michigan as a place of opportunity. That's a good thing. I want everybody to see it as a place of opportunity. If you're here already or if you're going to come here later, that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and I love that because for the exact reason that you said, my family came on different sides from Atlanta and from Mississippi and migrated here. And obviously, I'm sure the automotive industry or industrial industry had a huge role to play in that. Yeah. But I think that with a lot of different things that we're seeing here, including the tech revolution, so to speak, and then also automotive, and that being changing, and people getting tech opportunities at these automotive companies, which is what I've seen from a lot of like transplants who come from other places like the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, and then come here and then start to work and then enjoy Michigan, enjoy Detroit.
But it's tech, it's art, it's life sciences. We've had more than a dozen unicorn life sciences companies come out of the state of Michigan in the last decade. It's you know, the second biggest part of our economy is agriculture. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like the ag tech is a growing industry here in the state of Michigan. And so I think there are a lot of things, a lot of stuff that people can sink their teeth into in terms of how do we make something grow. And I feel like the challenge that we issue to people, if you want to grow something that matters, if you want to build something that matters, Michigan is going to continue to be the place where you make the things that matter going forward. And if you are about that life, this is where you need to be. Like, that's the pitch. Yeah. And I think people will continue to respond to that.
Are you going to add that to your campaign? If you about that life, you need to come to Michigan.
We right here, right now. We just kicked it off.
In your travels around the state of Michigan, what are some of the common things that you hear besides, I'm sure for a long time, is fix the damn roads. But aside from that, what are some of the common things that you hear from the folks in terms of either concerns or things that they love about Michigan?
I mean, on the concern side, is stuff I alluded to before: housing, healthcare, mental health services. What's my place in the economy going forward? Is AI going to eat my kid's job?
Yeah.
Or the thing my kids are interested in? The answer is it doesn't need to. And so I hear about that a lot. As far as like what people love and are excited about, we are blessed with our state's beauty. We really are. One of the reasons that, we rolled out a program a few years ago called Nature Awaits. When I was a kid, I never went to a state park. Mm-hmm. And so we did this program such that for every fourth grader would have the ability to visit any state park they wanted for free for a year. To be able to just have access to that. I mean, imagine the things you can see and be exposed to. It's just transformative. We're really blessed. People love that about Michigan. I was actually down in Southwest Michigan, almost in Indiana, earlier this spring to work to be with these third, fourth, and fifth graders. They were releasing baby salmon into the river for the season. Like, that was cool.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have done that as a kid. But that's something that's unique to Michigan. People didn't even know we had salmon like that in Michigan.
Yeah, I didn't. I just learned that now.
Exactly. That's cool. And so we have so many things that people can be exposed to, and people love that. People love the beauty of our state. And so I hear about that consistently. I learn about these hidden gems. That's really inspiring.
Love that. And by the time that this episode is released and people get a chance to hear it, it will be the day after Juneteenth. So I just wanted to ask you real quick the significance of that, what it means to you, and also if you could relate it to the state of Michigan as well.
Well, on the most micro level, Juneteenth is my baby girl's birthday.
Shout out to baby Juneteenth.
Yeah. Ruby is my freedom baby. So
there we
she was
go.
born on Juneteenth in 2019. The thing that I think is unique and inspiring about Juneteenth is that, and this might be kind of nerdy, but like, this is a holiday that's about being informed. Mm-hmm. Like, it's about knowledge and information. Because, what happened in the story, right? It's like the people in Galveston, Texas were legally free. Like, according to the law. Mm-hmm. They didn't know that.
Right.
Since they didn't know that, they didn't act like that. And they weren't treated like that. Mm-hmm. So Juneteenth is celebrating the moment where these soldiers got there and said, hey, you are free. It is one of the most beautiful illustrations of the power of people knowing who they are and knowing what they have and knowing, therefore, what they can do and who they can be. And so I love that because it is a reminder that knowledge is power, that information is important for us to grow, that we can't reach our fullest potential and be the biggest and best version of ourselves if we don't have knowledge and understanding. So Juneteenth represents that and all the freedom that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love this holiday. I'm proud that we celebrate it here explicitly in Michigan. I'm proud that we celebrate it explicitly as a country now. And I'm proud that everybody gets invited into this celebration of Juneteenth in the way that it was, my family did, but a lot of families in other cultures didn't. Mm-hmm. But now I think people have a more consciousness of it and they can be transformed by it as well.
Is it almost like the physical embodiment of being invited to the cookout?
I don't go that far, but the stuff gets a little shaky when you start inviting people to the cookout. But,
absolutely, yeah.
But everybody can have access to an experience of learning about something and being better for it and being stronger for it, and that's what it is.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And so, Lieutenant Governor, what do you have on the horizon? What do you kind of see in your crystal ball moving forward as far as current duties, future duties? Like what do you have on the horizon or anything special that you're working on that you could share with us?
I mean, I wake up every day trying to solve problems. And so I'm going to continue to do that as lieutenant governor. I want to do that as the next governor of Michigan, to go the next level, because Michigan, we have amazing things. Governor Whitmer and I have laid a really strong foundation for the future. And as these times change, as the world continues to evolve, I think we need somebody in public service, in the governor's office, who Michiganders can trust to navigate those changing waters, who's equipped to be able to handle what this technology means for our people, for our economy, for our culture, for our education system, that we can use these tools for the betterment of Michiganders, not the detriment of Michiganders. So we can have leadership that is willing to stand on business, fight for our values, and when there may be abuses either on the horizon or coming at the people of Michigan, that somebody will stand tall there and say, no, that's not going to come to our people. We're going to stand up and fight against that and stop that. That's what I want to see and what I want to build. That's what it means to me to stand tall for Michigan, to be proud of it, man. Like whenever you go someplace, you're never alone if people know that you're from Michigan or from Detroit. Yeah. Right. And so that energy is what I think positions us, propels us to be able to do amazing things. And I think we got to keep that energy going forward in a big way. So I want people to be part of this movement, to join me at garlingilchrist.com, so that we can build something amazing together, so people in Michigan and people come to Michigan, they just know that this is the best place.
Absolutely. And where can folks, aside from garlingilchrist.com, where can they get in touch with you? Like, what's the best ways? What's your socials? Like, all that stuff. I
mean, garlingilchrist.com is a great way to join and be this campaign to stand tall for Michigan. Click the donate button in particular. That's my favorite button on the webpage. My IG is Garlin II. That's probably the best and most responsive place to see me as well. I'm Garlin on Twitter, Garlin. But that's where you find me, and but really join us. We're building something exciting and inclusive and ambitious, and something that everybody has ownership of. Mm-hmm. This is not something that's about me; it's about Michigan, and I'm excited to grow it.
Absolutely. And I noticed over the last couple of years with your social media, you've been more intentional in terms of like content and spreading the word about different things. I just wanted to real quick, because I know you have entrepreneurial mindset, and then I could tell, a bit of a creative in there somewhere as well, especially with like the type of work that you do. But just want to know, like, what was the intentionality behind being more intentional about that communication and like creating effective ways to reach the people, let them know what
you
you're doing.
You got to go where people are. I mean, it's like I guess a communications version of what I do physically, in terms of going all over where everybody is and being willing to go everywhere. It's one of the reasons why I appreciate and respect this platform. Look, I used to host podcasts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I hosted a podcast back in 2013 and 2014. Mm-hmm. And so like I respect what it takes to build media, to build audience, to do storytelling in a real way. I love it. Look, I had a cup of coffee with going to journalism school for grad school. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. And so I because I think it's important, that's why I want to be on this podcast. Mm-hmm. I want to come and support this platform, but also show that I think that people are getting information, experiences, and ideas across a wide range of platforms. And so part of leadership, they say so leadership is 97% of success is showing up. Mm-hmm. Well, that's 100% of leadership is showing up. And so that means showing up in the media, in the spaces where people are consuming as well.
Yeah, we appreciate you pulling up to the platform for sure. This has definitely been an honor, and love the work that you're doing, and saying that from a non-biased place, because you are a fellow Wolverine and also a part of his history as well. So yeah, just really grateful to be able to have you here, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward with the campaign and all the work that you're doing at the state capitol.
I appreciate you, Denzel. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. And everybody watching and listening, we'll tap in with y'all soon. Peace.